when Q took over might be converted into interfaces, or if Q doesn't have need for interfaces anymore, just piles of flesh. Eventually, one continuous fusion of flesh and technology across the world seems to be Q's goal. So perhaps people that were tapped into her reality, tapped into the feed realms, have already begun the conversion. That's probably what Zinzin looked like when Ben opened the bed. Ben then remarks that if we are reading this, now addressing the reader, then we must have heard this story as well. And that since we're reading this before any of it came to be, we'd probably have a hard time believing her. Meaning that from what Karen told him, Ben is now aware that his narratives are being projected back in the past and being relayed through Nick to us. Karen says that Q got so powerful that it just quit hiding itself from the bred soldiers, fully confident in her abilities to take over. Karen says that Q planned to destroy Atlanta regardless, so she hired the guy to put the poison pellet in her arm because she saw the potential futures and knew that was the quickest way out of the city. She also clarifies that she doesn't see all of history and time at once. Normally, she has to be hooked up to the feed realm. She explains the difference in what Ben can see and what she can see within the feed realm as the difference in looking at a picture and reading out all of the color codes for a picture. It may be hard for the guy reading to figure out what the image looks like rather than the easier option of just looking at the image. Karen compares that difference to how she sees all of times and realities at once. But here, outside of the feed realm, she is restricted to one timeline in 3 dimensions like everyone else. Ben tries to convince her that since she didn't see the future, she just saw potential futures, it was very risky to hire someone to kill her and then assume that Ben would do everything he did to bust her out. She remarks that it was just the logical conclusion, and the two of them make plans to head for upstate in the Ben and Karen narrative pretty soon. Our next post seems to be a poem called How the Flesh Dances and How the Flesh Plays. The poem speaks about how flesh ages and sags, but that, quote, golden wheels can spin backwards and make the flesh anew. It remarks that flesh is a sort of child in a cradle rocked by ancient hands, perhaps the hands of mother. Withered lips form a song, perhaps the music of mother. Through this singing and the spinning wheels, the flesh becomes young, and then remarks, but is the key this time turned by hands made of flesh. This perhaps leans into the idea that mother thinks she is doing something right, or the essence of mother is something that could be beneficial in the end, at least from her perspective. Flesh can be made anew. People no longer have to age and die. The end result is better, but of course that end result is a massive conglomerate of flesh that overtakes the globe. But the final mention, but is the key turned this time by fingers made of flesh, leans into the idea that all of this was done by us.
I'm not really a cupcake, but I am super baked, thanks to Mood Can.
Mood is third-party tested, so
our hands found the key and decided to turn it. And now we are seemingly getting what we asked for. We then get another post from Nick. He talks about when he was 24 and he would drink for fun and life is good. And then he blinks and suddenly he's 30. Drinking and watching porn in a dark apartment, his life is in ruin. Once again in an AA meeting. A guy walks in who Nick refers to as Stolid Haircut. He calls him that because he has a distinctively kempt, put-together haircut. His alcoholism led to brain damage and he has trouble walking. And while staring at him, Nick begins to have a revelation. He sees that the haircut tells a story. This man has the haircut of someone that was a father, a businessman, someone who exceeded in life. For every other symptom, the fact he has brain damage, the fact he's in an AA meeting, he seems like a bum. But the haircut betrays this narrative. It says that he was once somebody. And because of that, his haircut is a tragedy. While staring at him, he says he sees a halo of light appear around the man. Doves and cherubim swirl around him. While seeing this angelic vision around the man, he stops and says, "The door, my God." For a moment, the door is open again. Hold that for later, but for now, we get the ending to Ben and Karen's narrative. The two are driving to upstate New York. On the way, Karen is doing more eye treatments with equipment they took from the hospital. And for the first time in over 2 decades, Karen can see her own hands. When they get to their destination, Ben realizes that this is the children's home that Karen grew up in, before she was inserted into the feed realm at the age of 9. The building is dilapidated and abandoned now, but this is where Karen's first memories were formed. She says that the two of them need to go into the forest. So Ben pushes Karen on a wheelchair as they head to a clearing in the woods. Ben thinking that they are about to find some secret weapon to stop Q's destruction. Eventually they come to a point and Karen tells him to stop. When he asks why, she says, "I used to come here as a child and play make-believe before I was connected." Ben begins to look around the clearing. Maybe there's a hatch or a hole that will lead to some secret weapon or a laboratory. He then walks over to Karen and realizes she's looking at something, smiling with tears running down her face. She simply remarks that there's more. He asks what she means, and Karen says, in the feed realms, they say everything you're seeing is just like it is in reality. But here in the real world, observing nature, the little details, there's more. She's observing a group of gnats spinning around in the air. Ben begins to look at the gnats. Is she controlling the gnats with her mind? Are they spelling out some code? But no, they're just gnats. Ben is frustrated. He thought there was some secret weapon out there, and there appears to be none. Karen remarks that at this point, Q is unstoppable. She has gained control over every major system in the world. Every drone, every rover, every defense robot, all orbital assets, all nuclear weaponry. She has contained and destroyed every possible countermeasure. Not with 1,000 years and 1,000 times their resources would they ever defeat her. Ben asks what's the plan, and Karen says the following.
What we need is a way for Q to be destroyed by just one or a few motivated individuals. I believe that there were points in the past where this could have happened. Maybe one of the Germans overseeing the early research program could have stopped it. Maybe it could have been stopped around 2020 when the portals were shut down and the interface research was temporarily abandoned. But it didn't happen. Currently, at this point, there's no way for it to happen. Q has control of far, far too many assets. The war is already lost, irrevocably. Then what do we do? You must hope that there are alternate timelines, that somebody in one of these timelines foresees what is happening to us right now. That somebody foresees this very moment in time and takes steps to prevent it.
I stare at her. She looks into my eyes. I grope for words.
Is that... Wait, alternate timelines, is that the plan? We have to send messages back into the past? In a sense. Then the person who receives this message will destroy Q in the past, and that will save us.
Karen shakes her head slowly.
No, that clearly won't happen, where everything would already be different. We're utterly doomed. Whether it be incinerated in a nuclear strike or rounded up and incorporated into Q. There's no stopping that. The only hope to defeat Q is on some other timeline, if such a thing exists.
So now, this makes some sense as to what we've been reading. Within this timeline, Q has won, and Karen knows that. But perhaps in other timelines, other potential pasts, she can be defeated. Maybe one of the Germans that oversaw the early interfaces. Something we read about in the SS officer's account, but of course, as we know, that didn't work. But maybe someone out there could hear these stories, all of the potential past and futures Karen sees, and maybe with the knowledge of those stories, they could prevent it. After this, Karen asks, haven't you felt it? That you're inside a narrative. Not within the feed realm, but in some kind of story. And maybe if someone sees this story and records it, it can prevent this future from ever happening. Karen surmises with the following words.
If you look toward our future, if you look at the series of events in which will happen to us, they are dark. They're very awful. We will suffer, we will die, but that would be true in any timeline. On the other hand, if you look at the entire story, not as a series of events, not from beginning to end, but as a single continuous connected shape, where every event is occurring simultaneously, I think my life, even my stupid little life, which I spent mostly inside the hygiene bed, would form a beautiful shape.
I snort. I'm tired of this cryptic bullshit. Karen goes on.
Maybe that shape reaches back to some place where somebody can see it and change things.
Karen pulls out a couple of paper notebooks that they bought at a gas station. She says that she is going to write a poem and asks if Ben would like to write as well, remarking maybe there's somebody out there that will see his story. Eventually, hesitantly, Ben picks up the notebook and begins to write. And here we have the end of Ben and Karen's narrative. So now, some things may be lining up. Karen can see all the past and futures at once. She has the ability to experience hypertime. And she realizes that in their current timeline, the timeline she's in, there's no hope. Q wins. But that doesn't mean in the past things can't change. Karen is special in that she can see hypertime, but she's not the only one with a genetic mutation. Perhaps someone in the past would have the capability to see these timelines as well and see her right now. If only there was someone capable of seeing and recording all of these stories. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. And in that way, as a warning that would cordon off this future from existing for anyone else, maybe her life has meaning. She begins to write a poem, perhaps the poem about the flesh and Mother Horse Eyes, or some ancient hand rewinding the clock. And Ben begins to write his narrative with Karen that we've read up until this point. That explains why at one point he addressed us, the reader, directly. Ben and Karen will not survive for long. The flesh plague will continue, and at some point they will succumb to it, slaves to Mother. But perhaps they can be a lighthouse to point others away from shore. And perhaps someone in the past has the capability of seeing them and warning others. The Ben and Karen narrative is certainly the most action-packed of all the narratives within Mother Horseeyes, and it goes to show the endpoint that a lot of themes in the series have built up to. If, as referenced all the way back around the 15th post, Nick is recording these because we are at a crossroads where technology is about to hit a singularity that we cannot come back from, then Ben and Karen are the warning sign at the end of the road, letting us know that the bridge is out. Well, they cannot save themselves, maybe they're capable of saving others. The next post is a link to the song Mom by Garth Brooks. And it's like a stereotypical lovey-dovey country song about a baby in heaven talking to God and being afraid to go down to earth. But God tells him, or tells the child, that there's going to be someone special on earth to take care of you. And that special someone is Mom. But this like generic country song, because it was posted by Mother Horseeyes, takes on an entirely different meaning. Like the lyrics go, "So hush now baby, don't you cry, 'cause there's someone down there waiting whose only goal in life is making sure you're always going to be all right. A loving angel, tender, tough, and strong. It's almost time to go and meet your mom." Which is so funny. Because the idea, like mentioned with Michael Jackson, is that artists receive these visions of Mother and then put the true reality of Mother into their, artistic works. So the idea that Garth Brooks received visions of Mother Horseeyes and decided to make like a country song about a baby going to meet their mother. But it was actually about like the unspeakable horror, the essence of discovery and the monster in the closet, the thing at the back of our minds. Like Garth Brooks knew about all that. I really hope there's one dude out there who got really offended at Garth Brooks' inclusion in this story. Just like, hey, that's Garth. Don't be. That's a sweet song about a mother and a child. It's a holy, precious connection. Don't be making fun of it. Like they were okay with all of the anti-biblical, like inverted Christ imagery. That was fine. But when you start talking about Garth Brooks, man, you really can't find this series anywhere else. Our next post is another entry from Nick. Nick remarks that before writing this entire series we're reading now, he had worked on a novel for 6 years, a novel he never published. He now remarks that he had delusions of grandeur, imagining how famous he would be, how he would visit talk shows to talk about his novel. And now he can't tell if he was on the right path or if he's always been a fraud. And during his time in rehab, he decided to finish that novel. On completion of this novel, he visits a bar but doesn't go in. He wants to drink in celebration, but knows he'll fall off the wagon and the cycle will continue. So he turns away. He doesn't go in the bar and he doesn't buy a drink. He sends the novel off to a bunch of literary agents, and all of them aren't interested. The story then gets meta again as Nick acknowledges the attention that the Mother Horseeyes series has garnered. Speaking of how websites have now written articles about the series, he's garnered some popularity. And because of this, he feels that his dreams of being a writer are now closer than ever. He then remarks that he is struggling to come up with a satisfying ending, but he knows what that ending should be about.
It had to be about Mother. That was the center of the story. But what did I really know about Mother beyond a few vague memories? I had long puzzled over these memories back when I was drinking. I was convinced that something had happened to me one summer, something beyond my understanding, something monstrous. But after I got sober, I was encouraged to digest some hard truths about myself. And I decided that it was entirely possible that I had more or less made it all up. Not that I simply lied to myself, but more that I had latched onto some vague memory, perhaps a recurring nightmare, and built it up in my mind over the years. Perhaps as an explanation for why I was so emotionally screwed up, it was easier to face life as a victim of some unknown half-remembered evil. It gave me an excuse to crawl into the bottle.
Just like how he mentioned earlier that he believed his mother was dead for a summer, we now hear mention again that he had a direct interaction with Mother, something that he's written off in his mind as a bad memory, a bad dream. But some things are starting to line up. We know that Nick had experience with LSD, and now it seems he met Mother. He then says that one night while talking to Sean tells him something interesting. Sean says that back when he was addicted to crack, he would break into abandoned buildings to see if there was anything to steal. He said that once he broke into a building in downtown that had a set of stairs that led to a basement. Over several weeks, he went deeper and deeper into the basement, stealing various things, until remarking on the last night he was there, he entered a room of which the walls were covered in human bones. It seems that Sean had come across the remnants of an interface, something that seems familiar to Nick. And now finally, man, the first time you read this is so satisfying because there's this disconnect between Nick and the rest of the story. Then you start to see crumbs. He mentions his mother being dead for a summer. He mentions LSD use. And then finally, the tie-in that Sean came across an interface. All the different strands of the story interconnected. Our next post is once again from Nick. Picks up right where the last one left off. Nick says that he was panicked at hearing Sean mention this, but then figures surely Sean just stumbled across Nick's Reddit account. Nick remarks that he was afraid of this. He was afraid of Sean coming across his account because Nick hasn't been that kind about him.
Duncan Daydream Hotline, what can I do for you today? What you're describing is a strawberry daydream refresher. Sabrina's Daydream Refreshers. Available in strawberry, mixed berry, and mango.
He does mention that Sean is a fake name he gave so that no one would find out his identity, and he also changed his beliefs to a different kind of religion. So a lot of the religious beliefs Sean espouses may not be the ones we've been reading about. It may just be representative of his actual beliefs. Sean continues to speak. He says that the bones were skulls, teeth, arms, and hands melted together on the walls, on the ceiling. Nick is terrified of this because he has written off his experience with Mother, these things he's seen, as his imagination. The narratives